Hello workshoppers, you might have seen the video that I released recently explaining how I built this PC from scratch, and that was filmed a few months ago. I've had time to try it out, and yes, it's extremely reliable, it's super quick, very happy with it. So this video is just to cover a couple of extra points that have cropped up since then. The first part of this covers the cooling problem I was having. You might remember I added extra fans to try and improve the processor cooling, and although that did help a little bit, it wasn't the end of the story. I now have a solution, so I'm going to explain how I test and what I did to fix the problem. The second part of the video will cover RGB LEDs. Against my better judgment, I bought one of these, and we're going to plug it in and see what it does. So I hope you can see my mouse pointer there. I'm going to use that to point on the screen as I'm talking. I'm using two programs here, Prime 95, which is a stress testing program, and HW Info 64. You can download those both free of charge from the internet. Prime 95 is a stress tester. You simply set it going and it will cause the CPU to heat up as it does work. And then you can use HW Info to have a look what temperature the CPU is at. Now in the case of this CPU, there are a lot of cores, and then there's an average value called CPU package, and that's really the one we're looking at here. And you can see in the maximum column, the highest temperature my CPU has got to is 87 degrees, which is good, that's just fine. And that's now the situation that I have. This has been running almost an hour, and so I don't think it's ever going to go above 87. Mind you, we are in a garage which is probably at 15 degrees C right now, and you always have to take the ambient temperature into consideration, because obviously if you're working in a hot upstairs room that's at 30 degrees C, then you may see higher temperatures here. However, looking over at this screenshot in the middle of the screen, this is what I used to get, 97, and it's highlighted in red. And the reason it's highlighted in red is because we're over the threshold for thermal throttling, which is when the CPU backs off its clock rate in order to save itself. So that's an undesirable situation, and that's what I was getting when it was in the state that you saw the computer finished in the last video. So to fix this problem, after doing some research on the internet, I discovered that what's necessary, and for this processor, because this is an unusual situation with Intel processors, you need to turn down a voltage inside the settings in the BIOS. Now I'm going to show you the BIOS screen. I'll show you which setting it was and what worked for me. So here's the BIOS screen. We're going to advanced mode, and then here under tweaker you will see vCore and dynamic vCore, and it's the dynamic vCore option you're interested in. You just highlight it, press enter, and you can change it. Now the recommendation is that you set this value to between minus 0.05 and minus 0.1, and I've gone for the halfway point, minus 0.075. If you set this too low, you'll cause it to malfunction. So I don't want to go all the way down to 0.1 if I don't need to, and that value seems to have sorted the problem for me. The temps have gone down by about 10 degrees. I should add that I have done a BIOS update in the hope that it would sort things out, but it didn't really make any difference to the temperatures at all. A few new menu options have popped up that makes it look a bit different than it did when I originally filmed it. But this setting has solved the problem, and I'm now completely happy. So now on to the fun bit, RGB lighting. Now, I have to say before I even begin that this is completely pointless, doesn't serve any purpose. It kind of reminds me of those car modders that put fluorescent lights underneath the floors of their cars, but whatever, it seems to be a thing, and the motherboard has all the electronics needed to drive the LED strips. So I thought, well, it would be churlish not to go and get one and try it. So here we are. This came from AliExpress. I can show you exactly where it came from. One moment. Okay, here we are at AliExpress. You have to search for the phrase LED strip gigabyte or whatever your motherboard is, and then rummage through. And these things come in a number of forms. So obviously you need the right connector, but you also need to decide between 5 volts and 12 volts, addressable or fixed light, and the length. So I've gone for 5 volts, addressable, and gigabyte 3-pin header. And this is what it came up with. We have a number of lengths available, so I just picked one of those, and I think I chose waterproof simply because I can. Why not? And you also have the spread of LEDs. You can either have 30 LEDs per meter or 60 LEDs per meter. So anyway, as you can see, it's not very much money. You do have to add postage, and it takes about 2 weeks to arrive from this website. The important thing here is that connector matches the connector on the motherboard. The motherboard's actually got 4 connectors, so it can drive most of the ones they sell. It is important to get the digital one and not the analog one, because there are more control options with the digital. Alright, so I'm going to plug this in, and we'll see what happens. And just before I plug it in, zooming in on the motherboard, yeah, so that you can see where I'm going. So it's here, this DLED1 is where I'm plugging this in. Now, getting to that connector is a little difficult with all these add-on boards in. So it goes that way round, and somehow it's got a plug on there. I mean, I can see well enough. Reaching it is a bit of a squeeze. So my little USB add-on board is out. Let's see if that helps. Got it. Right. Let's just put that back where it belongs. That was quite the faff. But I guess once it's in, eh? Okay, we're powering on. Take my torch out of it, and there we go. We have light. So here's the gigabyte control screen, and this is the number of options you have for the non-digital strip. We have the digital one, and we click on that one. There we go. So we have all of these we can play with. Currently it's in the off state. That's here. And we can select any of these, or we can click on customize, and we have 6 presets, which are basically settings that you've made in the based on the other effects, so you can have it cycle from one effect to the other. There doesn't seem to be any way to manually enable effects, which would be quite nice. I'd like to script it so that it would do a particular effect depending on what the computer was doing. Maybe a different piece of software, I don't know. Okay, so these are all the effects you can put on. I'm going to select D-Wave, and now I'm going to pull the camera back to show you what's going on down below. So what you're able to do with these settings, there are two basic speed and brightness settings. So that's maximum speed, and that's minimum speed. Not much going on for this effect, I have to say. And there's also a brightness setting, that's maximum, that's minimum. I quite like that one. And there's all sorts of things like double meteor. There's some that are really not very interesting, like the flash, which would just annoy the heck out of me. There are static ones which just have a fixed colour. Pulsing ones. Some peculiar ones like this thing called colour stack. And what you can do is go to customize and pick your favourite ones, set them up in here, and then it will cycle between those. And that's about all it does. The fun part is that this strip is sticky backed. You just peel this blue stuff off and stick it on. Now, of course, given that this has no practical use whatsoever, it would be rather stupid to stick this stuff to something that you then might need to remove from the case. So finding the correct position within the box to put this without causing a problem could be a little difficult. I might be inclined to cable tie it. So I'm going to have a go, and then I'll show you the result when I'm done. There we go. So this process was very much like putting Christmas lights on a tree. And I have managed to put it in a location where it'd be pretty easy to move if I need to get at anything. And I did try the sticky back effect that it comes with, but unfortunately it's so difficult to get the blue backing off without damaging it that I ended up resorting to cable ties. I did just use a bit of the sticky at the ends. Now that's it. Let's put the cover on and see what it's like. Well, all you can see in this is me reflected in it. From my point of view, it looks much better. Wait a minute, let's try. There you are, that's better. So that's it. My pointless upgrade completed. It does look very flashy, but as I said, it's not a practical thing. It's just something it can do. It's an option if you feel like spending a few quid. And with that, I'm done. I'll see you in the next one.